Good historical day to everyone. Today, we're going to discuss one of the most controversial issues in the Philippine history, the first cry of rebellion, which are the first cry of Pugadlawin or Balintawak. Despite the fact that up to this day, we are still celebrating and commemorating this event as National Heroes Day. Many of us doesn't know the behind story of this event, which created conflicting ideas in the history because of such multiple accounts as to where it did Andres Bonifacio and his fellow Katipuneros ripped their cedulas and shouted, "Long live Philippine independence." So today, we are going to do a further discussion about this controversy. Background of the authors.
Pio Valenzuela, Cry of Pugadlawin, August 23, 1896. Born on July 11, 1869, and died on April 6, 1956. A Filipino physician who was a major figure during the Philippine Revolution against Spanish colonizer. At the age of 23, he joined the Katipunan and became one of the officials. Pio Valenzuela is also a friend of Andres Bonifacio, and he secretly established Katipunan branches in many areas in Morong, now known as Rizal Province and Bulacan. Guillermo Masangkay, born in June 25, 1867 at Tondo, Manila, his parents were Domingo Masangkay of Batangas and Victoria Rafael of Tansa, Cavite. He was Bonifacio's childhood friend and personal counselor. He joined the Katipunan when he was 17 and one of the first members of the Katipunan. Guillermo Masangkay was given a mission to initiate a members in Cavite. He assisted in holding the first Labor Congress on May 1, 1913, and was responsible for the erection of Bonifacio Monument in Caloocan City. Guillermo Masangkay played a key role in the Filipino-American War as a revolutionary general. Guillermo died on May 31, 1963 at the age of 96.
Historical background of the documents.
Cry of Pugadlawin. From the memoir of Pio Valenzuela, he stated that it was at Pugadlawin in the storehouse, and yard of Juan Ramos, son of Mechora Aquino, where over 1,000 members of the Katipunan met and carried out considerable debate on August 23, 1896. The discussion was on whether or not the revolution against the Spanish government should be started on August 29, 1896. Only one man protested and fought against the war, and that was Teodoro Plata, Bonifacio's brother-in-law. The first cry happened in Pugadlawin. Dr. Pio Valenzuela was the only eyewitness who accounted that the cry happened in Pugadlawin. Teodoro Agoncillo, Revolt of the Masses, 1956. Agoncillo used his considerable influence and campaign to change the date and venue of the first cry to Pugadlawin in August 23, 1896. In 1963, President Macapagal ordered that the first cry of Balintawak shall be called Cry of Pugadlawin, and it should be celebrated on August 23 instead of August 26.
Cry of Pugadlawin is a significant event in Philippine history. It was the beginning of the Philippine Revolution against Spanish colonial rule. The event took place on August 23, 1896 in Balintawak, a small village near Manila. The Katipunan was founded by Andres Bonifacio and other Filipino patriots in 1892 with the goal of achieving independence from Spain through armed revolution. The organization grew rapidly throughout the 1890s and eventually had over 30,000 members by 1896. In July 1896, Spanish authorities discovered evidence of the Katipunan's activities and declared martial law throughout Manila and its surrounding provinces. And Pio Valenzuela was one of those present at Pugadlawin when Bonifacio made his call to arms. Valenzuela was a physician who had been recruited into the Katipunan by Emilio Jacinto, another prominent figure in the revolution. On August 26, Bonifacio led around 800 men from Cavite to Pugadlawin, where they tore up their cedulas, tax certificate, as a sign that they were renouncing their allegiance to Spain and declaring themselves independent Filipinos to fight for freedom from colonial rule. This act became known as the Cry of Pugadlawin or the Cry of Balintawak after the village where it took place. The cry marked an important turning point in Philippine history as it signaled the start of an organized rebellion against Spanish colonial rule, which would eventually lead to independence after 300 years under foreign control. Although there were many battles fought during this period before eventual victory was achieved in 1898 with the help from American forces. It all began with a single act of Pugadlawin, which has since become one of the most iconic moments in Filipino history remembered today. Also, Pio Valenzuela's account provides an important historical record of this pivotal moment in Philippine history and serves as an inspiring reminder of what we can be achieved through courage and determination.
The first cry happened in Balintawak. There are actually 5 accounts of versions from different persons in the Philippine history which are related to the cry of Balintawak, and some of them has been discussed in the authors. These accounts show that the first cry happened in Caloocan. According to Dr. Milagros Guerrero, Ramon Villegas, and Emmanuel Encarnacion, stated that all these mentioned places are part of Balintawak, and Quezon City during the Spanish regime is still not an existing place. An eyewitness named Guillermo Masangkay of the historic event and an advisor of Andres Bonifacio was also asked by Bonifacio for approval of turning the Katipunan into an association for the revolution. This proves his huge credibility on his account about the first cry. And if all accounts were combined and scrutinized, Bonifacio and the Katipunan were constantly moving from one place to another in order to avoid the Spaniards. Therefore, different meetings were held, and this is why many of the witnesses remembered various cries of Balintawak. Events according to Masangkay. August 26, meeting held in Balintawak at the house of Apolonio Samson. Among those who attended were Andres Bonifacio, Emilio Jacinto, and Agoydo del Rosario. 9 o'clock a.m., August 26, meeting was opened with Andres Bonifacio presiding and Emilio Jacinto acting as secretary. The purpose was to discuss when the uprising was to take place. Andres Bonifacio argues with the other leaders about starting the revolt too early and leaves. Andres Bonifacio, upon leaving the meeting, gave a fiery speech, and the people shouted, "Revolt!" After the speech, they altered their cedulas. After the flag and tearing of cedulas, Andres Bonifacio returns to the Season Hall and informs the leaders of what took place outside. Despite their differences, they all voted for revolution, and outside the people shouted, "Long live the Philippine Republic!" At 5 o'clock p.m., while the gathering at Balintawak were celebrating, guards up in the trees gave a warning that the Spaniards were coming. Andres Bonifacio then led them to prepare for the attack by the civil guards. In 1970, the historian Pedro A. Gegalonia pointed out the cry of Pugadlawin cannot be accepted as historically accurate. It lacks positive documentation and supporting evidence from the witness. The testimony of only one eyewitness, named Dr. Pio Valenzuela, is not enough to authenticate and verify the controversial issue. As compared to the accountants pointing Balintawak, many eyewitnesses presented like Lieutenant Olegario Diaz, who is a civil guard which also collaborates with the account of the historian Gregorio Saide, and Teodoro Calao, who also wrote in his 1925 book entitled The Filipino Revolution that the cry took place during the final week of August 1896 at Kangkung, Balintawak.
And now, let's move forward to the content and contextual analysis of the important historical information found in the document The Cry of Balintawak. The term cry is translated from the Spanish El Grito de Rebellion, or El Grito for short, which means cry for rebellion. The term cry signifies the message of resistance and defiance against an oppressive regime. The contextual analysis reveals its cultural and historical significance as it reflects the Filipino struggle for independence and their desire to break free from the chains of colonialism. The first cry. The first cry is generally signified as the first call for rebellion. It is marked as the beginning of Philippine Revolution or seeking of independence for Philippines from Spanish colonial rule, with the use of violence and arms. The first cry was the first call for rebellion against Spanish colonial rule in the Philippines. It is led by Andres Bonifacio and it took place in Balintawak in year 1896. It marked the beginning of Philippine Revolution. Its significance lies in galvanizing the Filipino people to fight against Spanish oppression and establish the first Philippine Republic in 1899. The event contextual analysis reflects the political and social condition that fueled the revolution, which had been long awaited by the Filipino people. How did it start? With the initiative of Andres Bonifacio and his colleague, they founded a Philippine Revolutionary Organization, commonly known as Katipunan or KKK, with its primary goal to gain independence from Spain through a revolution. The Katipunan was a secret organization until it was discovered in 1896, which led to start the Philippine Revolution, which is now called as the First Cry. The Cry of Balintawak marked the start of the Philippine Revolution against Spanish colonial rule. The event began with the formation of the secret revolutionary organization called the Katipunan. Their primary goal was to gain independence from Spain through revolution. The Filipinos were oppressed and exploited by Spaniards for more than 3 centuries, which led to widespread poverty and suffering. The discovery of the Katipunan in 1896 led to the tearing of tax certificates in protest, symbolizing the rejection of Spanish authority. The Cry of Balintawak was a significant event that paved the way for Philippine independence and serves as the reminder of the sacrifice and struggle of the Filipino people in their fight for freedom.
Now, what are the significant events in the first cry? First one, we have tearing up of community tax certificate. The tearing up of community tax certificates or cédulas personales symbolizes the termination of Katipuneros' loyalty to the Spanish regime. The Cry of Balintawak marked the start of the Philippine Revolution against Spanish colonialism, and the tearing up of the cédulas personales by the Katipuneros was a powerful symbol of their rebellion. This act of defiance represented their commitment to their cause, as well as their refusal to submit to Spanish rule. From a content analysis perspective, the tearing up of the cédulas personales demonstrated the Katipuneros' willingness to fight for their freedom. From a contextual analysis perspective, the event was significant because it was a catalyst for the Philippine Revolution. It rallied Filipinos to unite and fight against Spanish colonialism in the midst of a period of social and economic unrest. Ultimately, the Cry of Balintawak led to the establishment of Philippine independence. Patriotic shouts such as "Viva la Independencia Filipina!" The shouts for "Viva la Independencia Filipina!" or "Long live Philippine independence" was to express the goal of their secret society. The cry of Balintawak featured patriotic shouts like "Viva la Independencia Filipina" or "Long live Philippine Independence" that reflects the revolutionary spirit of Filipinos for their freedom. These shouts highlight the bilingual nature of the revolutionaries and the influence of Spanish culture in the Philippines. They also express the goal of the secret society that organized the gathering, demonstrating their commitment to the cause of independence and inspiring other Filipinos to join the revolution. Overall, these shouts symbolize the Filipino people's resilience and determination in their quest for freedom and independence. When and where did it happen? It is very surprising that there are various versions on the dates and venues for the first cry. This controversy remains unsolved in the Philippine history since different Filipinos have varying accounts as to when and where it happened. Because of differing accounts and the ambiguity of place names in these accounts, the exact date and place of the cry is disputed. Despite the significance of the cry of Balintawak, there is still much debate surrounding the event's exact date and location. Various accounts exist regarding when and where the cry took place, but these accounts are often contradictory and unclear. As a result, the historical record is muddled, and it's difficult to determine the truth behind this critical moment in the Philippine history. Despite the controversy, the cry of Balintawak remains an important symbol of the country's fight for independence. It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity and uncertainty, the Filipino people can come together to overcome oppression and achieve their goals.
Contribution and relevance of the documents in understanding the grand narrative of Philippine history.
The relevance of Cry Balintawak in Philippine history. It will be a sign that all of us have declared our severance from the Spaniards. The cry of Balintawak occurred on August 26, 1896. The cry defined as the turning point when the Filipinos finally refused Spanish colonial dominion over the Philippine island. Bukod sa kontrobersyon, meron ding kaugnayan ng cry Balintawak sa Philippine history. At ang kaugnayan nito ay noong naganap ito noong Agosto 26, 1876, naging senyalis ito na ang lahat ng tao ay nagdeklara na ng ating pagkahiwalay sa mga Kastila. Ang sigaw na tinutukoy bilang punto ng pagbabago na sa wakas ang mga Pilipino ay tumanggi na sa kolonyal na dominasyon ng Espanya sa mga isla ng Pilipinas.
The cry in the Balintawak or Pugadlawin has made a great contribution to us. The Philippines decided to stand against the Spanish domination and fight. It marked the beginning of the Philippine Revolution in 1896, leading to Philippine independence in 1898.
To conclude, if you are going to see the reason why this event becomes very controversial is that because the first-hand sources or the eyewitnesses have multiple accounts, that's why it is also become an issue in the Philippine history which remains unsolved up to the present day. So, if you are going to scrutinize it, what exactly is the value of changing the date and place of the first cry? Why did the authors or sources want to change the date and place where the first cry took place? It really doesn't make sense. It really doesn't matter where the event happened because what matters is what Andres Bonifacio and the Katipunans did for our country. Their decision to revolutionize and change the course of our history is the most important. What matters the most is that we give significance or value to the contribution of our national heroes in order to begin a revolution for us to be able to achieve our Philippine independence.